In 1490, 2 years before Columbus discovered the New World, the Chippewa Indians of North America settled on a tiny island off the coast of present-day Wisconsin. They christened the island Moningwanakaning, meaning the home of the gold-breasted woodpecker. 200 years after the first white settlers forged into America's northernmost territories, little of the Indian heritage and culture remains, but this is not forgotten.
I am here and I am not. I want to sleep in a canoe under the moonlight, smoke my pipe at sunrise, sing songs in a sweat lodge, perspiration running in streams, water down my back, jump in a cold lake and purify, sleep on the edge of a high cliff beside Lake Superior, to be a wave crashing against the rocks, be the spray against my face for the wind to take me along, my namesake and my power, and then to come back to the center, to come back to the center, to come back to the world. I am here and I am not.
Their arrival on the island was no historic coincidence, but rather the fulfillment of an ancient Chippewan prophecy that promised a sacred homeland to the tribe and an end to centuries of nomadic roaming. Walter Brissett, a direct descendant of Moningwanakaning's first inhabitants, is a man alone. He is the modern-day caretaker of the prophecy and protector of the spirits of his forefathers.
The island, as we know it, was part of a prophecy, part of our creation, part of our identity. There was a prophecy amongst our people which said that we would travel to 7 different places, and we were to follow a sacred shell known as a cowrie shell, what might look like a seashell. We call it a migas shell. This migas shell would shine over these 7 different places, and over an extended period of time, maybe 500, 600, 700 years, we followed this shell, and it would travel to these different places. But at its final stop, the migas shell was last seen over a place called Moningwanakaning. That is the name we have for this island here. And this shell was over this island, and it told us that our prophecies were fulfilled, that this was the last place we needed to go in our migration.
It is no wonder that people choose to escape. It's no wonder that people choose to escape to a place like Madeline Island with its tranquility and its beauty and its quiet. It is no wonder that people escape into alcohol or into drugs. It is no wonder that people look for a way out of the pain and the suffering and the hurt in our world.
It's really not a faraway place, but, you know, it has the atmosphere of one. It's almost like the atmosphere of Alaska or something.
If you're going to live up here year-round, I mean, obviously you're going to be the type of person who provides your own entertainment. You know, it's not like you can come up here and say, well, entertain me.
I work long hours, and you come to me and you say, well, what do you think about the island? Well, God damn it, I hate it. Right now I can't stand it. I want to leave. I got to get out of here. I'm suffering from cabin fever, is what I say.
Sometimes there's 2 main groups of islanders, or 2 main groups of island grudges. There's the whose grandfather got mad at the other one's grandfather, that group, and then there's the group of who pissed off who at the bar last night.
We had a survey not too long ago, and some of the questions was what would they like to see in the next 10 or 20 years from now? And many of the people said they would like to see the island like it was 10 or 20 or even 100 years ago.
I always know that when I'm on my way back here, I'm coming back to my fullest self.
Finding one's real self is a common thread to the island's community. Despite their social, economic, and philosophical differences, the inhabitants have all, for their own individual reasons, chosen to live here. Chosen to be surrounded by a ring of water, and thus forced to share their lives and the island's inheritance with each other.
Well, if you listen to much of the Indian history of the island, the Indians lived here first, you know, and they have sacred writings that they buried in the caves around here that they claim someday they'll be taken back and shown to the white man, and they'll take this land back. There's a lot of Indian history here. There was one time there was 2,300 Indians living here, and it was their paradise, you know, and the white man came and took it away from them. I feel it here of course I feel it in the woods. Their spirit is still here.
So it became, when we arrived, the center of our nation. It was our military center, our economic center, but most importantly, our spiritual center. It was here that the Grand Medicine Lodge, our Midewiwin society, thrived. It was from here that outposts onto the mainland were sent, and important sites were developed. People from all over the nation would come to Muninguinakaning to participate in prayer and ceremony and rejuvenation. Still today.
Madeline Island gives home to some 150 people. One of them is Mort Cushman, founder of the Madeline Island Art Guild. He gave up his hectic and sophisticated teaching life at the University of Pennsylvania for a life of seclusion and simplicity.
I was an academic, and then when you go from being an academic to a place like this, the only work available, as was the case, was construction. And that was appealing to me because I'd never really done work on construction. And so pounding a hammer and or pounding nails and working with a shovel was really appealing to me. So I did that for, my goodness, a long time. And I loved it, you know, so it was just taking a taking a chance and seeing if you can make a living doing something you like to do, and non-mental, you know. I guess I was burning out on the the teaching stuff. So a lot of hardships and a lot of, you know, the business about where you're going to get the money to pay the mortgage and stuff like that. But still, people, I think, with addictive personalities love to gamble. You know, that's part of it, and just change the life. This is my third place on the island, and I guess I had been moving towards it all along, and that is what it is this sense of seclusion and privacy, and being able to not see anybody if I don't. That's why I don't have electricity. I don't have a phone, and at that time, that's what I wanted. I wanted things so simple that, except for my damned gas-powered refrigerator, which I don't understand, but everything else, it's pretty simple. If I want heat, I've got to put wood in the wood stove. If I want water, I go out and I pump my water. And I can understand that. That's pretty simple. The only thing I'm not comfortable with in this house, and it's not that big of a deal, but it's not having running water, so I can't take a shower. I don't think I'll ever have a bathroom with a toilet that I'll flush. I've gotten really used to the privy, as have some visitors here recently. It doesn't bother me. This morning, for example, you know how cold it was. I went out to go to the bathroom, and it was fine. And I haven't gotten that way, but it's fine to go to the bathroom outside.
You can feel the edge develop. You're actually rolling it over. And then you flatten that off a little bit, and then you grind it from the other side.
John Ruff lives with his wife Marcia and their son Emmett in a house which they built themselves. The advantages of city life and the luxury of sanitary facilities mean nothing to them, compared to the peacefulness of the surrounding woods and the small island community.
Well, getting water in the winter is pretty easy, because when you get a good fresh snowfall, then it's right outside the door, and it takes a lot of water, a lot of snow to make a little bit of water. But if you have like a half of tub full of warm water to begin with, then you just fill it up with snow, and that snow that you dump in there melts real fast, and it fills it up. But sometimes I like to get water from the ice, from the lake. And the lake is real clean, and it's just a real pretty blue ice. And even when the water, when the ice melts down in the tub, it has a real blue tone to it. It's real pretty, kind of an aqua blue water. And then you just get it the right temperature with your hand, so that you don't burn yourself. And when you get it the way you like it, you just hoist it up there. Hook it on the old hook here. And then if you want more of a steady pour of water, you can just take this off. And you just go underneath and wash your hair like that.
Well, warm it up a little bit.
In the winter, Lake Superior freezes over, and when this metamorphosis occurs, a vast landscape of ice and snow envelops the entire region. As a part of the 12 Apostle Islands, located in one of North America's Great Lakes, and with a landmass of some 80 square kilometers, Madeline is the only inhabited island in the group.
Good fish, I thought it was a bad one.
In the spring and summer, a temperate climate prevails, while the colors of the Indian summer in autumn are especially beautiful. The beauty of the island never ceases to fascinate even the people who have lived there all their lives. Lorraine Mortissi still enjoys the peace and quiet of the place where she grew up.
We came over to the island in 1929. My father had read an advertisement that there was a farm on the island, and so we came from Superior, Wisconsin. I was about 2.5 at the time, so I actually don't remember the trip itself, but I soon remembered as when we were on the big farm, and it was a lovely place, a lot of fond memories. And island, beautiful island, I love the name with all my heart. Lives dangerously. One of my favorite things, of course, is the November hunting for venison. It's not only hunting for deer, it's getting out in the woods during that time. That, again, is a real peaceful time. You get to walk the whole island. I don't know as if there's a spot on the island that I haven't walked through or over in the years of hunting. There are a lot of people that came here, well, let me think, about probably 20 years ago, that they seemed to be dropouts from society. They were educated, some of them highly educated, all single, and they just sort of drifted in, and some have made homes here, some have gotten married, but we never could figure out at first what they themselves saw on the island when they had good educations and just came here and not really getting jobs, but living sort of from hand to mouth.
I'm a man. I wear cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And sometimes I can screw up my face like Randolph Scott. I drink a lot of beer and I can talk loud. I'm a man. I do hard work. I'm tough. But I never tire of telling women what a good lover I am. I'm all grown up. I'm a cowboy. Don't fuck with me. Hi, Nori. You need me?
Ed Hartig is chairman of the town board, restaurant owner and proprietor of the island's only store. Hartig is an enigmatic revolutionary, a man who considers himself a social refugee in exile.
I consider myself an exile here on the island. Briefly, I was a very good teacher, a good writing teacher. My students won writing awards, national writing awards. They went off to Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, all those wonderful things. And I'd been blacklisted a couple of times during the 60s, during the 70s, during the 80s for my various views. I couldn't get a job teaching anymore. My credentials suggested that I was a problem. And not that I wasn't a good teacher. I won awards of my own, but I couldn't get a job in my America. And I became very angry. And then I became frustrated. And then I became depressed. And I said, I'm a young man yet. I need to earn a living. What am I going to do? Sort mail or something? And this business, I have a deep background in this business. I know it very well. It was available. I came here. That's why. I'm an existentialist, I suppose. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to use ISTs and ISMs, but I am that. It makes it easy to identify me. I don't believe in any gods. I don't think that it's even a relevant question. I think it's perfectly outside the bounds of intellectual discussion. I take the existentialist views absolutely, and I'm told by religionists that I'm more like living up to the Christian values than many Christians. I am absolutely and totally and inexorably and forever responsible for my existence. There is no way out. I have no justification for any abnegation of my responsibilities for my life. I am who I am, in all ways.
While many of the island's inhabitants have chosen to live under more basic conditions, the community nevertheless has many of the modern conveniences offered in conventional suburban life. These facilities often serve as informal meeting points for the locals, who are just as anxious to share a word with a neighbor as they are in washing their clothes automatically. Once upon a time, Joe McCarthy lived in New York. What originally was intended as a 10-day visit to the island has turned into a 20-year odyssey of life away from the homogenized society of modern-day America.
I grew up in a crowded area, and each house looked exactly like the one next door. You couldn't park your car in front of your house. Each yard was maybe 100 feet by 60 feet. And I liked upstate New York, you know, with the trees and the wildlife and a rural setting rather than a congested, neighborhood. And of course, living on an island, I've always been attracted to the water. Every place I've ever lived has been close to the water. And to me, this was the type of setting that I would like, to live in the woods, away from the crowds, the noise, the pollution, all of that stuff. And this life up here on a year-round basis is not for everybody, and you see a lot of people come up here and they're just overwhelmed with everything. And, in the wintertime, you can't buy a job. So earning a living, scratching out a living up here is kind of difficult, so you get to rely on yourself quite a bit. I have to work for a living. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I work at a wastewater treatment plant. It's a job. I do it very well. I can't say that I'm madly in love with my job, but it's something that's needed, and it really doesn't infringe upon anybody else's earning a living. And it seems to be beneficial to the environment, and so that's pretty much what I do to keep the wolf away from the door.
If Madeline Island had a royal family, the Nelsons would be it. Tom Nelson, on the other hand, lives a controversial life that is anything but aristocratic.
ice racing is a contradiction. I mean, it's fun, but I know it's wrong, but I do it anyway. Well, it's a waste. I'm thinking of painting my car on the side. It says, "This car should be illegal," or something like that. I really do think they should make V8 engines illegal in automobiles. Double the price of gas. So there's a perfect $50 billion that we could get in taxes by doubling the price and get some real schools. May not be ready, but we're so damn close to it that you can't hardly tell the difference. I'm Tom Nelson, the one and only. One of many Nelsons here. But members of the same family are seldom related, as they say. Well, I feel like I'm more related to my friends than the vast majority of my family here. So you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your relatives. I'll be Arnie's brother one day, depending on who you ask, or I'm Wayne's brother, if you ask Arnie. Some of my relatives never heard of me. Well, one thing I've been trying to think of a way to do for several years now is how to live a life that has no impact on the planet or a negative impact. A year ago, I had 19 automobiles here, and that was probably what really got me in trouble. Too many automobiles. I had fully intended to recycle them properly, like drain the fluids and things. But one thing and another, and too many projects at once, they sat around here, and I suppose they leaked a little bit, and it wasn't that good for the environment. But I chose a piece of property to start with that was already screwed up. And everything I got piled here isn't really hurting anything. They complain about my house is ugly, so I sided it on two sides and painted it, made it look nice on the Hollywood facade sides. But I left the other two sides alone because I didn't have any money. But they say, "Your house is a mess, Tom." I said, "Well, you've got to add to the equation. Sure, I'm making a mess in this one area here, but look at how much I've cleaned up the rest of the island, because this is where I got these cars. Half the cars belong to friends of mine. I'm just letting them leave them here. All this stuff that I got here, virtually all of the old junk I found in the woods or was going to the dump, or I didn't create them. They were already created. And I've just got them in storage trying to find a home for it." I've just been drawn to the broken tool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Something to do with sculpting, I think. I'm collecting for the day I really start sculpting. It's a broken file. We've got broken oil spout. Another broken hairbrush. This is in the broken tool collection, but if I find another one with a broken handle, I'll probably rob it and put one of them in the real tool collection. More broken pipe brushes. There's a number of different ways. Here's a broken sack. That's a tool for carrying things. There's another various ways that gloves get broken. Here's a tool I don't even know if it's broken. It's got a couple of sets of broken binoculars here. Probably 3. About a dozen blenders, 12 vacuum cleaners, 5 wringer washers. And I know where to get more wringer washers. I don't have it all here. I mean, I know where I can get more. I can't show you what's in the back of these closets because there's like no way in anymore.
I view this as a temporary occupation by people who are imbalanced, who don't understand, and who need to somehow reclaim their own prophecy and sacred shell of their own religion so that we can someday in the future sit in common council over the issues that we all face now. So it's a spiritual occupation, it's a physical and economic occupation. It was preceded by a military occupation.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave.
Community services, as required by the federal law, must include schooling. The Madeline Island School is no exception. All local children, regardless of their ages, learn together here in one class. Madeline Island's municipal structure is broken down into the Town Board, which oversees the day-to-day running of the community, and the Zoning Board, responsible for general welfare and development. Politics is a predominant pastime on the island, and the inhabitants have their own and often outspoken individual views on local issues. However, a certain laissez-faire attitude toward active participation on committee board prevails, and results in a few community members actually setting policy for the many.
What's your responsibility?
There is a lot of things to do on the island, in island government, and there's very few people that are really interested in it. So once you start going to the meetings and see what's going on, you feel like you should really keep busy and try to watch that the best things happen for the island. A lot of people are interested in personal gain, and they will go ahead and start something. And we have a town board that consists of only 3 people. So if someone wants to get something across, it only takes 2 people to vote that, a quorum of 2 to vote that.
This place for me, having worked in Chicago, Cook County politics extensively, is the closest as I've ever come to living in a democracy as I've ever been any place in America. And one of the points is that they don't have an executive position. That is to say, any major decisions here are made by the entire town.
Politics is about power. And when you start to go for power, you sell your soul. And that, to me, I think, says it all.
Do we have a copy of the final plot plan, or the blueprint, that is, so that I can show this to the members of the board? And
The zoning is a town policy that's been adopted by the town that sets restrictions on the use of a person's property. And theoretically, they're not supposed to use the land or build anything on it that is not in conformance with the rules and regulations that most of us abide by. And you have those people who want something for nothing at their neighbor's expense, and so if they don't get their way, well then you become in disfavor with this particular individual or their fan club.
I think we need to deal with the road. do
okay,
we?
is the committee in agreement on that issue?
Did they decide which road they were going to use?
No, but that will come up for discussion. I've talked to Yvonne about that. I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, Tom, how do I get on that zoning board? Because I want to stop somebody from building on that lot across the street from me, and I don't want a house over there, because then I won't be able to see the lake." And I tried to explain to him. I said, "That's not the reason to get on the zoning board. if you get on the zoning board, you should abstain from making any vote on something that's right across the street from your house. But that's not the way it is.
We have on file 4 letters.
If you think my work on the zoning board is political, I suppose it is if you say, well, I'm a ringer brought in, and I was, simply to get the music camp here, which I'll which I'll admit. But so what?
You ready?
Hit me.
I'll read it so it isn't all confused. Until several days ago, I had thoughts of voting yes to the music camp's request for a conditional use permit. The reason being that I felt sorry that they couldn't find a home. This morning, I woke at 3 a.m. and realized that this was not a valid reason to base a vote on. We still have Charlie Dahlquist's letter of opposition to deal with, and I don't think we should just ignore this. The music camp is made up of very talented children that are making music their career, and they're from all over the United States. They're very good, and it's mostly chamber music, and they put on musicals at our church and at different places on the island, and they've been looking for a permanent place. So far they've been renting, so we feel that they've been trying very hard, and I think this time it'll pass and we'll have the music camp here.
Committee members, in your minds, is it clear? Do you feel that we have the authority to rule on this and
Absolutely.
and to authorize this situation?
Yes.
Yes. Lorraine?
Are you asking for a vote?
No, I'm not asking for a vote. You obviously don't agree with the situation because of your statement.
But let's say the music camp is turned down again, in which case I think they'll leave the island and will have lost an incredible opportunity. And what that will mean for La Pointe Center and what it's trying to do is really terribly serious. That's why the meeting on Monday night is going to be so terribly important. But let's say that they were turned down again. I don't think that's going to happen. But if they were, I would work really, really hard at not